This figure of speech Jesus used with them, but they didn't understand what he was actually trying to say. I can't really say I get it either, not entirely. I might not quite understand what he's trying to say, but I believe him, and I think that makes all the difference. I have no doubt you believe him too, and you take comfort that he is your shepherd and you are his sheep, and no matter whether you understand what he's trying to get across here, you understand enough. This figure of speech Jesus used with them in the hearing of the sheep who believe him, but these others didn't understand what he was actually trying to say. It helps that you are here, fulfilling in part what the very earliest of the days of the Christian church anticipate. You are gathered around the teaching of the apostles and the fellowship, devoted to the breaking of the bread and the prayers. The rhythm of our song was set early, and we still dance to it, still sing to it, still answer to it, for it is the song of our shepherd, the teaching of the apostles and the fellowship, the breaking of the bread and the prayers. Even though we have ceased putting all our possessions into a common treasury, we still put some of our possessions into a common treasury, in part to maintain the teaching of the apostles in our midst, and the fellowship in this building, and the breaking of the bread and the prayers, and in part to help each other. We are the flock of God, and God is our shepherd, and we hear his voice, and we obey, like sheep hearing the voice of the shepherd. This figure of speech Jesus used with them, but they didn't understand what he was actually trying to say. And why not? Well, perhaps they didn't want to think of themselves as sheep. Perhaps they didn't want to acknowledge that it's all about Jesus. A very wealthy man conglomerated, I think you call it, when he gathers all his assets under one corporate entity. And he used his assets as leverage to buy a prime piece of real estate at the corner of Main Street and First Avenue in the downtown of Gotham City. An old condemned building stood there, which the city wanted demolished, and he was only glad to do so, bringing that corner down to the bare ground, from which he wanted to build a skyscraper. And not just a skyscraper, but the tallest building in the world, one to which all the world would flock, so that he might feed them freely from all his wealth and give them shelter. And what kind of wealthy man would do such a thing? Well, the kind of wealthy man who makes his own son the project manager, a daunting task when it comes to negotiating with the powers that be, where exactly and when exactly he aimed to start sinking support beams into the ground. Lots of laws were in place to make every grain of dirt weigh 1,000 pounds. But the project manager was up for the task, to obey every law, to make everything just so for his father's skyscraper. It takes a lot of people to raise a skyscraper, and not just labor. In addition to all that labor, you need lawyers and accountants, liaisons between labor and management, liaisons between the project itself and the government. All that equipment has to be financed and, secured. Earth movers, cranes, bulldozers, backhoes, the ATVs, the golf carts, the shovels-matics, and the chains. Financed, managed, and secured. Secured because many would climb over the fence and drive away with a nice bobcat. So he hired security. Whenever security saw the project manager coming, they opened the gate without hesitation. And when he would come in, everyone would flock around him for the joy of working for him. He knew all his people by name, too, no matter how long or how often he was called away to manage the project from other offices elsewhere in Gotham City. They loved him, and he loved them, for the project his father was building and for the magnificence of his person. He was something else, teaching them about the skyscraper project and about Gotham City in ways they never understood before, and about his father, who was a recluse high atop another skyscraper, who desired one day to make an appearance once this skyscraper was completed. He had conglomerated everything else in order to get it built. On one lengthy occasion, the project manager was called away to settle some of the trickier parts of construction law. Who knows what? But he was gone for a very long time. By phone, he would send messages, and those who spoke for him were faithful and true, and the people working on the project listened to them as though they were listening to God himself. There were others, however, who had climbed over the fence by night, those who were jealous of the project manager, who thought they knew better, and they spoke to the people as though the project manager had called them. The blueprints are clear, they would say. The project must be done in this way, not the way these others are saying. And so there was confusion, but the people didn't listen to them. The worst of them were very anxious about getting the project done. And they said, "Look busy for when he comes back. If there is no work to be done, then make work. It is not good that we should rest and relax and enjoy ourselves. We should be working to get this skyscraper project completed. And then the project manager will be happy with us and also his father. The only reason the skyscraper isn't completed is because he's angry with us. He doesn't love us anymore. We have to earn back his love. Wouldn't he be back by now if he loved us and wanted to get the skyscraper done so that he could feed us freely?" But the people said, "He feeds us freely already." And the people didn't listen to them. But these false managers believed their own words, and they went about making themselves busy and demanding the people join them, not trusting the project manager. And they created anger inside the construction zone, and they made a general mess of the project. Those whom the project manager called spoke to the people, saying, "Look, this stack of blueprints is far too complicated for anyone to interpret apart from the project manager himself. When he says relax, we should relax and let him do the work. And in so doing, the skyscraper project will be done, pleasing both us and his father." And they brought peace to the construction zone. You could say those who were called were teaching them and breaking bread with them. This figure of speech Jesus used with them, but they didn't understand what he was actually trying to say. So he doubled down with an even more inexplicable figure of speech, one requiring yet another lengthy sermon illustration. "I am the door." He repeats it, "I am the door." In between, he indicts those false project managers. "All those who came before me are thieves and robbers, coming into the construction zone to steal the equipment and put the sheep at harm and even sabotage the project itself out of sheer envy and rebellion." And how do you get into the construction zone? How do you gain access to this marvelous project where living water flows, where bread from heaven falls? How do you enter to see the Son, who with the Father and the Holy Spirit is worshiped and glorified? Just how do you do it? All you have to do is die. It's the easiest thing in the world to do, to die. The shepherd calls you, and you follow him. You follow him to quiet waters, and there you die, baptized in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, baptized with water, where you receive your name, by which he calls you back from the dead, just as he called Lazarus by name back from the dead. In baptism, the shepherd opens himself up on the cross. The door opens himself up, and you pass right over into the fold. In his death you find the resurrection, and in him you find living water and the bread of life. And you eat, and you drink, and you rest, and you relax, for you know that being baptized, you have life in him. Life he has given you, a life to live, and a life to live abundantly. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want.